Hey everybody, it's with thanks to Andy Sillis Motorcycles down here in Southsea in Portsmouth that I have the Zontes GK Sports CAF 350 on loan. This is a budget bike. This is a 350 that costs on the road about £4,700. This is also the first Zontes I've ever ridden. I've done a lot of research, I've spoken to people in the industry, I've already done lots of reviews on Chinese bikes and things, and Zontes gets put aside from everyone else pretty much for producing very high quality things and also quite unique things. They're not just copying other people necessarily. There may be some influences along the way, but they very much are building their own stuff, as I understand it. We'll get out on the road in a minute, but I thought I'd just show you the sort of things that come on this bike, because for £4,700 it's pretty impressive. Okay, so spoked tubeless tyres. They're not cheap. These tyres actually look quite rubbery and quite nice. Yeah, they feel like normal tyres. Oh, they're CSTs. I've heard of CST before now. Never ridden with them as far as I know, so I can't give much of an opinion on that. But they look much more like tyres than, you know, the nylons that you normally expect. It's got some pretty big discs on it, some disc covers. That's quite cool, actually. Obviously, we've got LED indicators. It's quite a cool little exhaust on this. It's not very loud, but that's because of the cat down there. I'm sure that can be played with maybe at some point. That's actually a very large disc for a rear brake. That should be very effective. These look like brushed aluminium, but they're actually plastic from what I can tell. They look good. This is where it starts getting a little bit odd. No, that is not a Fitbit. That is the key for this bike, which you normally can wear or put in your jacket or whatever, blah, blah. It is obviously a keyless system. So I'm on the bike, just got to turn it on. Do we have to press that one to unlock it? There we go. Got to work out which combination it is. Got a nice little TFT display going on down here. There is an awful lot of buttons because this does an awful lot of things. This is the fuel one, and there is your fuel cap. There's also one for the seat, which I've not checked yet. What's that going to do? Oh wow, just instantly unlocks the rear seat. You're going to want to see under it, aren't you? There we go. That is what's under there. So going over the controls quickly, obviously throttle, start button, light switch. This apparently is an eco mode button, but we'll see if that makes much difference. Kill switch, fuel switch and seat switch, which we've shown you. This is the steering lock button, which I'll show you in a minute. Then we've got a menus mode for, there's lots of stuff on the display you can change. Horn, indicators, hazards, light switch, and you see in high beam, low beam, and your pass light. The way you lock this bike up is obviously put the stand down, turn it off, and then you press and hold this button here, and that puts the steering lock on. See? Something to be aware of though is if you turn this off, press that button, see here, it hasn't locked. Well, if you start pushing the bike around and then you turn it this way, just like with the car, the steering lock automatically comes on. So it's just something you should be aware of. So as I mentioned, this has got a mode button. We've got a live MPG, I'm guessing that is, a range of what's left in the tank. And we've also got tyre pressures and temperatures. So this has got tyre and pressure monitors on it as well. The amount of stuff that comes on this bike for £4,700, and the fact that it feels like nice, like very solid, even everything's finished with nice pieces of trim, the plastics feel solid, like it's water cooled, 6-speed, about 40 brake horsepower, and about 40 newton meters of torque. So, you know, for what you've seen so far, this seems like a good deal. To start it, you obviously put it into go. Oh, I'm in second, I don't want to be in second, I don't want to have the stand down either. Should we get going? It's pretty impressive to see all those toys and gadgets on this bike. It almost has a BMW-like vibe about, you know, the amount of different like features it has. Is that RGB? Every single light switch has got RGB around it. I forgot about that. Well, I don't know about RGB, you might be able to change the colours, but it's at least there are glowing lights around all of the controls. So you've got illuminated controls, although they aren't marked on them, but it does, you know, highlight where they are. The clutch is very light. It's a hydraulic clutch, which is obviously a huge benefit to being light and good for start-stop traffic. I have to say, in my initial impression so far, this is very impressive for under 5 grand for a 350. Oh, I just hope that the sort of the engine performs the way I'd like it to. It doesn't have to be stupidly powerful, but it needs to be plucky. I can't push it too hard because this bike's actually basically brand new, but as long as I don't over rev it, it'll be alright. I am 6'4", and I'm actually really comfy on this. It's very upright, very classic bike feeling. They call it a calf racer, but it doesn't... Normally calf racers are a little bit uncomfortable. This is very comfy. You know, the bars are... maybe I want the bars very, very slightly wider by maybe an inch, but I'm always kind of like that on bikes because I'm used to an SM with nice big wide bars that sort of match my shoulder width. While we're fighting our way through this city, I just want to give a big thanks to Andy Sills. I'll put a link to his website in the description. His shop's down in Southsea. He is a fantastically friendly man. In fact, I've known him ever since I rode 125s, and as it turns out, he taught Reno how to play guitar when she was in like junior school or something like that, because he is or was a guitar teacher. Well, I suppose the silver lining to this is I'm getting to give this a proper little city test. You know, on and off the throttle, on and off the clutch. It feels very comfortable and smooth to do that. Oh, I didn't mention, this weighs about 188 kilos fully wet, which is a little chonky for a 350. But, you know, this day and age, the bikes seem to be getting heavier. Oh yeah, of course, also, the engine is a single. That sounds pretty good. 350 single, 40 brake horsepower. It's actually more brake horsepower than the DR, and it's a 400. I can imagine that if you decatted this, it would sound pretty nice. So currently it's very, very quiet, and that's good if you're going to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, you don't want to wake your nose up. Finally, we're going to get out of the city. Ooh! Oh, it pulls! I know that might seem like an obvious thing, but not all 350s, you know, not engines are really designed to give you some actual grunt. Oh, I'm loving this already. This is a fun little bike. Now, if this can sit as 70 on the motorway, you've got a real contender here for an absolutely fantastic all-round machine. Okay, so that's 70 miles an hour in 6th gear, 6,500 RPM, for which a single cylinder is amazing. It's there's a little bit of vibes going on, but they're mostly lower and in my feet. This is really comfy at this. Still pulls. I have to say, I am mightily impressed by this bike so far. I really actually very much enjoy it, like, for myself. Honestly, you can normally tell when you're riding a Chinese bike. It just feels a little bit different to, you know, one of the big brands. Normally because it's a little rattlier, maybe a little vibier, you know, because everything's a little bit lighter, maybe a little bit cheaper. If I didn't look down, I would swear I was riding one of the big four. By just the feel of everything, the way that everything's, you know, placed and balanced. This is why I'd rather the bars were longer. I naturally just did that. I'd probably take these bar end mirrors off anyway myself because they're a bit pants. They do have the holes for normal mirrors if you want them, but obviously they're going for that calf racery look. Okay, so we've come from Southsea down there up to the top of Portsmouth Hill, and already I love this thing. This is great. This is great small bike fun. You know, I give you my honest answers, and I was not expecting to feel this way about it this quickly. I just want to get back out into the country roads. I want to see what it's like down there. How are Yamaha charging like nearly 5 grand for some 125s, and you can get this absolutely awesome 350 on the road for 4.7? It also comes with a 2-year warranty. So before you say, oh, well, you'll get a warranty with the big brand, You get it with this too. I don't know what the service intervals are like on this, to be fair, but from what I've heard, everything with this, with Zontes, is just kind of like, it's good, it's cool. They're kind of doing it the way you would want them to. So naturally, you would expect the price to be a bit higher. Now, I need to be relatively careful. As I say, this bike is basically brand new, as are these tyres. But I, damn it, want to know what this thing is like in the country road. So I'm going to have to be brave and just trust myself. It's got good usable grunt. I mean, like, 45 mile an hour in 5th gear, because these people are just going slowly. But I could just roll the throttle on, and that was barely touching it, and it picked straight up to nearly 60. In my experience with nearly all Chinese bikes, they can be so close, but there's always one or two things that are just a bit off. Something I don't quite like. But so far, I'm not getting any of that from this. Out of the city, into the countryside. Now, as I say, new tyres, new engine, new bike. I need to be relatively careful here, but I equally do want to feel what the handling's like on this, because so far it feels planted and solid and fun. It is a little bit vibey, higher up in the RPMs, which, as I say, for a single cylinder is not a surprise. It kind of comes with the territory. You've got a lot of mass flailing around with not much to counteract that weight. Obviously, these brake pads are relatively new too, so the braking performance might not be as good as it will be in a few hundred miles, but it is something I want to test, so I'll do that in just a minute when I know I've got a clear road. This is great. And brake. Okay, I'm going to push the ABS just a little bit harder this time. And brake. Okay, fine. So the brakes on this are really good. I mean, it's unsurprising. It's a good setup, what they've got going on there. Nice big discs. As I say, the rear brake is a large disc for a rear brake, especially with ABS, but it does actually feel great. It doesn't smack you back in the foot super hard. There is a pulsing there when you step on the rear brake, but you don't get that bang, 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 bang. Actually, on some bikes it can be painful smacking you back in the foot. Okay, now I've waited for the slowest white van driver in the world to go. Enjoy this one. Cows! This is great. This isn't just great because it's cheap. This is a great bike. This is proper plucky, trustworthy handling, fun. The suspension is, it's quite firm, but there's no jarring at all. It's very comfortable. This is a very nicely set up chassis. Nice, it's the white van man. It's actually him. He's the slowest white van driver has ever existed, ever. He drives around at 18 miles an hour everywhere. It's too good. Oh, I suppose we should try the eco mode, shouldn't we? I can't say I feel any great difference at all. I'm not sure what exactly that button's doing. I mean, to have an entire button there, you'd expect it to do a lot. Honestly, I can't say what that eco is doing. I don't know whether maybe the engine needs to be reset in between or something, but meh. Now, when I do reviews, because I do them completely honestly, I always try and find a couple of, not so good points that I'm not the biggest fan of, to bring some balance into this. However, I'm finding that difficult to do right now. Okay, the bar end mirrors, they're a bit rubbish. so what, I'd probably remove them anyway, and that would give me my slightly wider bars that I feel like I want. I mean, you can say there are a few vibrations between revs, if you know what I mean. As you come through certain harmonic rev ranges, you get some vibrations with this. Okay, we are doing 40 and a 60 going up a hill, so let's go for an uphill overtake and see how it goes. I can see all the way up here, so I can keep going. That's great. That's just, you know, it's a little 350 that's just pulled itself past a couple of cars up at a reasonable hill. I am back down in Portsmouth, heading back to Andy Sillis down in Southsea, and yeah, as I say, I'm shockingly impressed by this bike. I was expecting to have a good little plucky bike, a little run around, you know, a cheap thing. I was not expecting it to feel like one of the big four. Unfortunately, my GoPro ran out of battery, and I didn't bring a spare with me, because I wasn't expecting it to be out that long, and I just ended up riding this thing around a lot. This bike, for the money, it's an absolute bargain. I don't really have much to say. I mean, it even looks cool. As I say, yeah, there's a few things that, you know, maybe I'm not such a big fan of the stickers, but I'd take it off and I'd make it my own. But I love that thing. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, you found it interesting or useful, please do remember to hit that like button. If you want to help support this channel, then you can do that through Patreon. It's the only way this channel is possible, is by the support of the audience, and it's also why I give you completely open and honest reviews. As you've seen in recent years, I'm having more problems getting hold of bikes because I think I may have been too honest in the past. I'm not changing what I do though. Anyway, as I say, huge thanks to Andy Sillis, fantastic guy, and I'll catch you in the next one, where I'll probably take this one out, which is the Zontes 300 scooter. If you want to see that, as I say, smack that like button and help support the channel. Till the next one, bye bye.